According to Robert McKee, an act is a movement that turns on a major reversal in the value change condition of the character's life. He continues and elaborates on the powerful degree of impact that the change has, for better or worse, on the character's inner life, personal relationships, fortunes in the world, or some combination of all these. Often people describe the ending of an act as the point of no return. Our hero makes a vital decision he cannot reverse, which then propels the plot in a new direction, unfolding new views externally that can take shape of worlds that either vary in environment or the people that inhabit them, or even both, but also providing us a visual advancement of the hero's internal roadmap in form of change in demeanor and attitude as denoted by McKee. 2017's Logan marries the common three-act structure and uses it to tell a compelling inner journey of a broken hero who at last finds redemption. Each act here demonstrates a big step towards the resolution of the story and encircles vital change of the protagonist. Mangold starts the film with an opening that introduces us to an alien character. Not necessarily in terms of appearance, for it is blatant that we see once again Wolverine on the big screen, but more in terms of behavior and circumstance. As we wonder how arguably X-Men's most memorable and infamous member reached this point in life, the perfect hook for the story plants inside us a refusal to believe what we see, but what follows only solidifies our worst fears. Logan is a shadow of himself, ailing, suffering from extensive alcoholism and nihilism. Our hero is broken, and the world around him doesn't seem to provide much comfort either. The rusty remote ranch, barely eligible to qualify as a home, reinforces the solitude he undergoes, with a child bound to his bed as Logan to his flask of whiskey, being truly the only one he still cares for. I mean, we all know that Caliban isn't included, let's be honest. Friends, family, Logan's loved ones are dead. Bearing abilities of essentially floating in time only exacerbate these scars. Much of the past is his ghost that haunts him, inhibiting a fundamental experience of being human, that is to love and being loved. For him, his ghost has long proven that love leads to pain, hence what he desires in the beginning is the means of escaping forever from the rest of the world. A boat for Charles and him to live on the sea where death precedes this very human experience, the truth, as some may call it, to be ever ignited again. This is Logan's normal world, and as Kame Wyland writes in her book Creating Character Arcs, think of the normal world as a symbolic representation of your character's inner world. Only when the normal world is challenged or abandoned at the first plot point is the protagonist's belief in that lie shaken. For Logan to glance at a new view, a series of reaction and action need to happen, in which reaction clearly dominates the character's behavioral pattern. The person that sets the series in motion is the mother of Laura, a young mutant who finds and implores Logan to help them get to Eden, a sanctuary located somewhere in or in the vicinity of Canada, where they're safe from Transigen, the company responsible for the near extinction of the mutants. Though, as blinded as our hero is, he initially rejects this cry for help and simultaneously the call for adventure until he sees the sum of money offered to him that is beneficial to his false goal, or what people may call the want. Something that drives him away from the crucial truth. Logan's decision to comply to this deal marks the inciting incident, which directly entails the first plot point, which sees Transigen soldiers invade his quote-unquote comforting ranch in search for Laura. Notice how events unfold from the moment of the inciting incident without our hero's participation. Laura sneaks herself into Logan's car and hence arrives at the ranch, only for Transigen to come and seek her. The main character reacting to the accumulation of these happenings denote the first major change in the story. Logan, Laura and Charles narrowly escape the ranch, their normal world, and find themselves in a new, unfamiliar environment which they have to adapt to overcome the rising forces of antagonism. As of now though, Logan himself doesn't necessarily exhibit much change, but Act 2 and 3 will make sure of that. Speaking of adaptation, this is a prevalent theme in the first half of Act 2, whether it's in form of physical adaptation, where the trio must make use of mannequin clothes to disguise themselves, or conform to the norms of the outer world, one Charles and Laura haven't experienced in a long time, and in the case of Logan, one he solely dwelt at the boundaries of. But what's more intriguing is that our main protagonist is forced to live with two people he didn't spend enough time with. For Laura is essentially a stranger to him, and his work as well as Charles' state have created mostly a barrier, preventing them from truly connecting like in the old days. It's also no coincidence that after the first plot point, the film evinces striking elements of a typical road movie where several characters are confined to one restrictive space, that is the car, and have to deal with each other's idiosyncrasies and issues. This situation alone, however, won't make our hero change drastically. The way to the truth is gradually shown. Charles in this case takes on the role of a mentor figure, wise yet weak, who treats Laura nicely and attempts to alter Logan's repulsive nature, longing for him to open up and regard Laura as a part of himself. The insistence of his false goal nonetheless persists, albeit endangered by him willing to take Laura to Eden. To make matters worse, Transigen is getting onto them, demonstrating their relentless pursuit once again as they uncover their hideout and continue to force the characters to move on. The plot is still heavily driven by the antagonists, and our hero is yet in a reactive state, but with Charles' guidance and Laura's presence, change is stirring in the protagonist, change for the better. For me, the midpoint of Logan has always taken place in the Munson's family's residence. According to Weiland, the midpoint prompts the character to turn away from the effects of the lie, if not the lie itself quite yet. She goes on and says it acts as the swivel for the entire story and also marks the end of his reactive phase and his transition into active mode. As often seen in other films, the midpoint is commonly staged in a grandiose way, depicted as a big flashy revelation that frequently lacks impact, as a character's internal change rarely manifests in the aforementioned fashion. The screenwriters Scott Frank, James Mangold and Michael Green cleverly structure this pivotal section by first granting our hero a glimpse of what he's been unable to have. Love in form of a family that is both kind and respectful to them as they are to each other. He receives the glance of the truth, although only eliciting a subtle smile on his face. This diminutive moment has a long-lasting impact on him and kinda serves in many ways as a cushion for what's to come. But the hope is soon obliterated as the antagonists land a huge blow this time around. By unleashing X-24, a younger, more physically superior version of the hero's self, Logan not only loses his longtime friend and mentor, but more importantly, his false belief is reinforced after beginning to fade just moments ago. His worst fears are reinvigorated. Truth leads to pain. With Charles dead, the protagonist's false goal is rendered obsolete, not by himself, but by external forces. Like in many other narratively rich films, the want of our character can be observed in the physical form, where he or she usually attempts to obtain something, while this desire is pulling them inwardly away from the truth they desperately need to be whole again. Thus, the manifestation of this very something is solely one of many means to vanquish the truth entirely, and the impact of the change itself is not reduced here in Logan. In fact, as provided by Weiland before, our hero now enters the active state, and this is shown by the decision of him agreeing to take Laura to Eden despite the low point he just underwent. He made this decision to actively turn to the truth, even if, on an inner level, the character is not yet ready to embrace it. This is particularly blatant when he meets the other mutants at the outpost, the next generation. They foster him, treat him politely and respectfully, knowing he's a man responsible for great acts in the past. Love surrounds him anew. The previously shattered hero behaves repellent once more, allowing his deteriorating false beliefs to show. He's almost there, almost able to relinquish this poison completely. All he really needs is his inner compass to guide him correctly. What I find interesting is that Logan's rejection of embarking with the young mutants to the sanctuary shares striking similarities with the rejection of taking Laura to Eden in Act 1. Both serve as pathways to events that incite great change within the story. Whereas the preceding one sees our hero's refusal reasoned by the unprofitable outcome for his false goal, the last one is justified by him being not prepared to wash off the poison he got accustomed to all these years. At last, when he ventures into the lush forest of a fertile land, contrasting his normal world in the beginning to assist the kids, there is, albeit only for a few moments, a side of the Logan we are familiar with. The Logan who fights injustice and paves way for the next generation to thrive. This third plot point bears a strong impact as it's not only reflected clearly in the character's behavioral change, but also in his environment. An aspect that's inherently tied to the core of the film is the hero's past filled with bloodshed despite the heroism it comprises. Perceived as a killer machine rather than human who has the ability to feel and emote, Logan must too face this demon in form of X-24, whose termination sets himself free, untying him from the pain of the past. At the end of the road, with the aid of external and internal sways, the dying hero has provided a way to the sanctuary for the young mutants, consequently experiencing before his death what seemed impossible in the beginning. Logan can now safe and sound reside forever in a spirited world, surrounded by life. Mangold & Co. dissected a character I would have never imagined to be so intrigued by. Ingrained in reality, it's a film very close to my heart and managed to make me ponder about the character for days on end. Thank you so much for watching.